Alright, so in this part we're going to be detailing the normal map in Endu. I think both Quixel programs have free trials, so you'll be able to follow along if you want to. But first thing you want to do is open up your map and then hit mix and go to there, and this will put it into a state where it's editable in Endu. It'll recognize your normal map. I'm going to do a couple of things to prepare it, just for reference. I'm going to put the UVs right here. If I can get it lined up. Try that again. Right, there we go. These will be my guides, as well as this, which will be for doing the ridges on the side here. Just using it as a reference. Should be lined up pretty good. Move it over just a bit. It's going to be slightly off because it was UV unwrapped. But anyways, I'm going to create a new layer. Go to the lasso tool and just trace out some of these patterns here. Should be good. So what we're gonna do is go to paint buckets and select a white and just fill, deselect. Now what that'll do is allow us to do a convert, and it's going to make a nice little bump. I'm gonna put it downward because that's what it is in the mesh, and we might change curvature perhaps. And the bevel, maybe? No. I think that should be good. Most of this is just messing around with the values until you get something that looks alright. And in order to get this to look correct on the normal map itself, you're going to want to switch this to overlay because it needs to conform to the surface underneath it. And I'm going to bump up the anti-aliasing, and you don't want it to be too soft, otherwise it won't show up very well. That should be good for the grip. If you'd like to preview it, you can go right here and just take a look. Yeah, I think that's gonna work, maybe. This part's kind of bothering me here. You just move this over. I'm gonna just move these. Copy these settings for use later. Copy again. Okay. We're gonna go back to the original and modify it a little bit. Alright. Now, I think I'm just going to move this section perhaps perhaps. Or maybe not. Let me actually let me paint this out. Let's round out these corners. And I think I might do the same up here. Should be good. Yeah. Make sure there aren't any halftones that might cause some problems. Now let's try that again. Then you can just paste your settings. I'll be back to where it was before. Alright. So, now we're going to insert a decal right about here that I made beforehand. Pretty easy to make just using the lasso tool. Down, put it perhaps right there, maybe right here. And we're going to go to adjustments, or first we're going to rasterize layer, and then go to adjustments, invert. That's going to make it white. And now we're going to do the same, and I might just, okay, that's a little too soft, and the curve. No. Might just leave it like that because it stands out a little bit more. Look how see how it looks. We can get away with that. Okay. Now we're going to add some text, which is marvelously easy in Endo. Just write out your text, which is in this case made in the USA, because that's what's actually on the weapon itself, and it was kind of made in the USA in both senses, and because America, so yeah. Just scale it down. It's not too huge, and it's actually going to go on the other side. Alright. I'm going to hit this button. Once again, slant down, maybe turn up the softness a little bit, and go to overlay. Turn up the aliasing, and it should be good for that. See how it looks. Yeah, that's good. Now, I think that's all I want to do as far as decals and things on this one. What we're going to do next is apply some textures to the normal map just to give some grit to the rubber and to the metal here. That'll be in the next part, just a second. So to add texture to the knife blade and the grip on the normal map, I went on CD Textures and got a couple of really rustic kind of plate metal textures, and in order to make these into a normal map, you just go to presets, and I'm going to choose standard metal, and then you can go to file and then just select the two textures that you want. I'm going to pause it while I render these out. Alright, so now that's done processing, we can tweak some of these values. This particular preset doesn't have any, well, have many values to tweak. There's the large dense, which gives some warping to the metal itself. I'm going to turn that almost all the way down. Small scratches, that's just exactly what it is. Tiny scratches, I'm going to turn that one down almost entirely. Okay, this will be the grip, I believe. So you can see that it's kind of, I don't know, spongy, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to copy this and copy merged. And then I'm going to open up my normal map that I was working on. And I'm going to paste this in. I'm going to rotate it. This might not be the most elegant way to detail a normal map, but I mean, it serves its purpose and doesn't look that bad in the end. So I'm going to get my eraser here, scalp the brush, and just erase out any parts that I don't want to have the texture. Okay, there we go. Alright, so again we're going to switch this layer to overlay, and I'll just move it over slightly. The UVs. I'm going to turn down the opacity a little bit to lower the strength. Okay, so that's looking good for now. Let's see how it looks on here. Yeah, I think that'll do. And now for the knife blade. Alright, so the knife blade is going to have a much more subtle effect. I'm going to turn off the dents entirely, just because I don't want any surface changes on the blade itself. I'm going to mess around with these values a little bit. Turn down the tiny scratches. And it might be hard to see from that angle, but that's the point. We want it to be subtle. Okay, so I'm going to copy merged, and then we're going to paste it onto here, and we're going to size it down. paste another part of it because we do have the knife edge itself, which we need to have detail on as well. We're going to merge those two, and we're going to turn on the UVs just that we can see what we're dealing with here. And okay, so I want everything outside of, actually let me just do this. Because all of these parts are the knife blade itself. So I'm going to put that at overlay, and then we're going to see how that looks up close. See, it's very, very subtle, but that's what we want. Just to show that it's been used a little bit, at least. And you can see some scratches along here. That's what we're looking for. If we preview this, you can see we get some nice little variation right there. Alright. So that should be it for the normal maps. Now I'm going to save this out. Save it as a TGA. Knife. Normals. Doo-doo. And one thing that is a feature in Doo-doo is, or Endu, I should say, is the ability to turn normal maps into AO maps and specular maps. But I'm not going to do this because Doo-doo actually does this on its own outside of Endu. So, give me a second, I'll switch over to Doo-doo now. One thing I neglected to mention is after you bake your normal maps and correct them, always bring them back into 3D Suite to check that they work alright. So here I have a knife set up with just your basic material with a normal map and AO map applied. Now you can see that the rubber looks passable, and you can see there's some very subtle variation on the blade, which was exactly what I wanted. And there's the text, which looks quite fine. And one thing I noticed, and you may have noticed while I was working, is that I forgot to paint out the screws here with the rubber texture. I went in and did that, so now it's all fixed, but just remember to always go into Blender, set up some lights, add a specular material, and have GLSL shading mode on, then go into textured. And then you'll be able to see your normal map and make sure that's doing it correctly. And you want it to be perfect before you go into Doo-doo, because that's the point of no return, basically. There's a lot of backstepping you have to do if you get something wrong, so always double check yourself. So now we get to have a little bit of fun with Doo-doo, which differs from Endu in that it deals with diffuse, specular, and gloss maps, as well as AO maps. So it can add a lot of environmental effects and different material presets to your object without you having to go in and detail each individual map. This saves so much time. I can't stress enough how much time it saves. Again, this is, I think you can get a free trial of Doo-doo on the Quixel website, so I'd recommend checking it out. It's just marvelous, all the things that it can do. So you're going to want to go to your folder, select your normal map, one that we just exported from Endu, then your color map, which, if you remember, I made in Blender, and then the AO map, should be knife occlusion, yes, and the object space map. And you might be wondering why it asked for an object space map. That's simply because of certain effects require the directionality of the mesh to be calculated, so that helps with those effects. I'm going to select an OBJ that I exported called SkyShop. This one is the full mesh put together, mirrored, everything, so that you can actually see the effects of the map once it's done. So now that we have all of those, you can optionally input some more stuff here. You can put in your UV wire or whatever, anything that you've made custom. Now, firstly, you're going to want to go to here and select standard reflectance, because that was the color palette that we used, if you'll remember, in Blender. And if you used max to bake your color map, then that's what you're going to use. But keep in mind, this is not the diffuse map, this is only the color map, which defines the material preset that Dedo will put onto the different parts of the mesh. So then we get to, you can choose one of these, which, to be honest, you don't absolutely have to. You can add in your own effects later if you want. I think I might just do quick and dirty, probably. But I could do sandstorm. Nah, it's a little too over the top. Let's just do quick and dirty. Alright, so once you have all of your things plugged in here, and you're sure your settings are all correct, then you're going to want to hit this press this button, and this is going to take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the size of the map. This time it's 2048, so it's not going to take that much longer. But I'm going to press this button, and I'll be back to you in a second. Alright, so I experimented around and found the best preset for this particular one. I did standard dirts, I think. Yeah, and it seemed to give me the best environment, at least for what I'm working with. Now see right off the bat that there's some undesirable strength to some of these layers. So I'm going to first, here are the different effects that have been applied under this preset that I loaded. And if you want, you can load a different one. Just make sure to delete all of these first, and then you can experiment around until you get something that works. So if you look at this one, this is the one that gives all of this staining, and I want to turn this down. So perhaps might be this one. Yeah, this is the one. And if you hold down shift and drag one of these sliders, it'll turn it down on all 3 maps, which is what I want in this case. I think I might turn it up on the specular a little bit. And this one isn't that bad. Let's see, any other parts that I don't like. Maybe just turn down the general opacity on all of this. Okay, so this one is the dust coming in from an angle right here. I'm just going to turn down the opacity on that one. And then I'm not exactly sure what this one is. Oh, this might be the AO kind of map. I don't know. But you'll notice that, well, first, if you want to preview your mesh, you can toggle the previewer on right here. It'll take a few moments for the maps to export in order to use in SkyShop, which is baked in or built into DDU, which is a really convenient program. If this will work, might be that I won't be able to get it to work because of just resources. But if you load it up, you'll be able to preview your mesh very easily. Alright, so you notice that this stayed open while DDU crashed, but you don't have to worry if it crashes because it's just a plugin, and if you load it up again, it'll detect all of your stuff in here. So if we just take a look here, firstly, these bolts are way too reflective. I'll have to turn that down. I might turn up the dust a little bit more. May have been a little bit overzealous with that. Otherwise, the normal maps are looking good. And it's nice because this has reflective maps built in and different types that you can test just to make sure it's everything is working properly. But just give me a second. Alright, so if we go back to, I think it was this one. Yeah. Alright, so I'm feeling pretty good about the material or environment where. Now we can go into the specific materials. Now, if you click on whichever material you want to change, just left click on any of these, and then you can change the color here. I'm going to change this to a dark bluish color, and then change the specular color to match. I think I might do something like that. And maybe turn up the gloss a little bit. And these correlate to D, which is diffuse, specular, gloss, of course. And then we mentioned the bolts were a little bit too glossy. So we can just bring this value down and perhaps turn up the diffuse color a little bit. Actually, I might change that to get more a little bit. Okay. So another thing you can do. Well, actually, let me change the blade color. Make this darker. Almost a little bit of blue mixed in. Looking over at reference just to make sure these materials match up. And now don't be deceived that gloss still has only black and white. Keep that in mind. But let me turn this up a little bit. And you can switch between the maps up here. It does it automatically whenever you're changing these values, but just keep that in mind. So I'm going to click on the rubber here and or dry rubber. And add a material detail. Now you can choose from many different kinds of materials here. I'm gonna look for is occlusion. It should be good. I think I might change the angle bias over. I'm gonna pause while I render this. Okay, so that wasn't exactly what I wanted, so you can just delete that. And could add some. There's a lot of different things you can choose from here. I want to give some more depth to those grooves, though. So try sun bleach, perhaps. See what that does. So sun bleach just gives kind of a gradiated effect depending on the angle that you specify here. I don't think that'll be necessary though. There's a lot of things you can choose from. I might just, yeah, I think I don't want to touch that for now. So on here, I'm actually going to add a lathe metal texture, going to adjust the angle bias to match the blade along that angle. And then I'm going to hit run. Alright, so I had to adjust the angle a little bit, but I got it lined up pretty well. Obviously, this is way over the top. We're going to have to change this a little bit. Tone it down quite a lot. And that should be good for the knife blade. Actually, I think I might do that the same with the edge as well. Only this time. Might adjust the angle a little bit. Let's be maybe there. And then I'm going to, again, tone it down quite a lot. This is just going to look a little bit more manufactured once we review it. And I think that's all I want to show you in Dedo itself. I might touch this up a little bit more, then get back to you and show what I did. Just hang on for a second. Alright, so I made a few tweaks to the colors and specular values, but I'm quite pleased with how this turned out. I think I'm just about ready to export beyond a few tweaks and color adjustments. As you can see, this viewer is really nifty for just looking at the model, looking at the specular values in different environments, and yeah. And before I go, just one quick little thing. Here's where you export your maps. Just check off the ones that you want here, and as you can see, the gloss is going to be in the alpha channel of the specular map, and it'll export them for you. You can change the directory here to something else like knife textures, and then just export checked, and it'll do its magic. And I think I'll show you how to link all these textures up in Unity and in maybe in Marmoset and Blender in a later installment. See you next time.